Today, the day I'm filming this, is October 4, and it's World Animal Day, a day of action for animal rights and welfare. So, I thought it was appropriate we discuss in great brevity the important evolution of animal rights laws. Welcome. My name is David Jolly, and by the way, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did by simply clicking on the subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Thanks. Well, to start, humans have not been kind to animals. Ignoring the fact that we eat them, the protection of animals has come very late in our history. It wasn't until the 1800s that the legal system finally reflected the slow evolution of society's gradual improvement in their attitude towards animals. The beginning of the 1800s saw the legal system view animals as items of personal property, and essentially the equivalent to any other piece of farming equipment. However, during the first half of the 1800s, lawmakers began to realize that an animal's potential for suffering was deserving of protection. One of the first, if not the first, written expressions of concerns for the moral and legal status of animals was in 1776. Reverend Humphrey Primat argued for the care of animals by writing, "See that no brute of any kind, whether entrusted to thy care or coming in thy way, suffer thy neglect or abuse. Let no views of profit, no compliance with custom, and no fear of ridicule of the world ever tempt thee to the least act of cruelty or injustice to any creature whatsoever." In 1781, Jeremy Bentham, an English barrister, addressed the issue of animals in the legal system. Bentham argued that there was no reason why animals should not be accorded protection under the law. He pointed out that animals, on account of their interests having been neglected by the insensibility of the ancient jurists, stand degraded into the class of things. Bentham pointed out that the capacity for suffering is the vital characteristic that gives a being the right to legal consideration. This belief has also been used as a rallying cry for those promoting the cause of animal rights. The question is not, can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? On May 15, 1809, Lord Erskine addressed Parliament, presenting the bill he had introduced for the protection of animals. In Erskine's address to Parliament, he stated, "They are created indeed for our use, but not for our abuse. Their freedom and enjoyment, when they cease to be consistent with our just dominions and enjoyment, can be no part of their natures. The bill I propose to you, if it shall receive the sanction of Parliament, will not only be an honor to this country, but an era in the history of the world." The House of Lords passed the bill, but the House of Commons did not. On June 10, 1822, Lord Erskine succeeded in obtaining passage of a law known as Dick Martin's Act, an act to prevent the cruel and improper treatment of cattle. It was a compromise first step, but an important one. The law made it illegal for any person to cruelly beat or ill-treat any horse, mare, gelding, mule, ass, ox, cow, heifer, steer, sheep, or other cattle. It was also during this period of time that an organization was formed in London that would later become the Royal Society for the Protection of Animals. Back in the United States, the laws were no different, really, than in Great Britain. Interestingly, the winds of legal change blew at about the same time in both countries. Possibly the most important person in the development of animal cruelty laws in the United States is Henry Bergh. In 1866, he returned from a trip to Europe where he witnessed firsthand the cruelty inflicted on animals and the efforts of the Royal Society for the Protection of Animals. Bergh had social and political connections and he used these connections to influence lawmakers in the drafting of legislation. But he actually went far further than that. He approached the New York legislature for a statewide charter for the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, otherwise known as the ASPCA. On April 10, 1866, he was elected the first president of the ASPCA. By the first anniversary of the ASPCA, a new, reorganized, and expanded law further protecting animals was passed by the New York legislature. But Berg knew that this law, even a greatly improved one, was meaningless unless it was enforced. He therefore saw to it that the laws were applied and the violators prosecuted. During the first year of the ASPCA, Berg addressed many different types of cruelty, including those involving the transportation of sheep to slaughterhouses, the capture of live turtles, horses pulling street railways in New York City, transportation of cattle on railways, and the elimination of dog and cockfighting. Berg's efforts in New York began to resonate in other areas of the country, and very slowly laws began to change in other states as well. Over the next century or more, and until today, lawmakers and lawyers have been arguing over pitiful little inconsequential things like, what do cruelty, torture, and suffering really mean, instead of focusing on the rightful and proper protection of animals. The legal evolution continues, but the law and those who make it still fail to fully understand the gravity and importance of animal rights. Thankfully, for all people who love animals and believe their protection is critical, there is much appreciation for those who dedicated their lives to changing the legal landscape and speaking for the many who had no voice. If you did manage to stick around until the end of this video, thank you. And if you can, please give generously to local animal shelters and protection organizations. And yes, please treat all animals with love and respect. They deserve it. For more videos similar to this, please subscribe to this channel.